Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Keeping It Real on Purpose, and I am your host, Edna White. Now, most people don't struggle because they can't write. They struggle because they don't know what comes next. A story becomes a book becomes a product, and a product, if done right, becomes a platform. Today, our guests are Danielle Bloom, Tara Hayes, and Laura Vasi- Vasica.
Bosica.
Bosica for New
Yes.
Yorkers. Me, I'm a New Yorker. Okay.
We'll
And
keep
they
know
are
how to
going
pronounce it.
to they're going to introduce themselves, but they're going to take us through the mystery of writing your book, from shaping your story to publishing and launching with intention. And they're going to get you in the mindset that you are going to get started. All right. So, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Danielle Bloom, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Blum. I am a multi-genre author and a creative entrepreneur. My debut book, Fragments of Affection, ended up at #1 on Amazon, and I did self-publishing. So hopefully I can give you guys some value and some good tips. And I'm excited to be here.
Awesomeness. All right, Tara.
Thank you, Edna. Hi, everybody. My name is Tara Hayes. I'm an author and a publisher. I guide coaches and consultants through the publishing process from start to finish. So, if you have a book idea and you don't know where to start, then I can help you get your ideas out of your head and onto paper. Or if you have a draft and you need help finishing the draft, I can help with that. So, I do basically the full publishing process.
Oh, awesome. All right. And last but not least, Laura.
I am the author primarily of the Bluebells Chronicles, which is a time travel adventure in medieval Scotland. I have a few other books too, but that's my big accomplishment, 5-book series that
Okay.
started out as a single book that became a trilogy that became 5 books. I also publish for other people, and I have a podcast called Books and Brews, where we interview authors and match, in this case, cocktails. It used to be beers, now it's cocktails to the author's reading.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to start with the decision moment. And I'm going to give you a question, and you can take it. We'll go around same order. Danielle, Tara, and Laura. Okay. So this decision moment. What was the moment you knew your story couldn't stay private and had to become a book? Tell your story about that.
Ooh, okay. Well, I wasn't really planning on writing the story. I think I sat down for a NaNoWriMo like 3 years ago, maybe, with the idea of like, ooh,
Hmm.
okay, maybe I'll try this out and see what happens. I lasted
Right.
like 3 totally just put it down and never pick it up again until about January. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just dedicate a little bit of time every day to sit down and write and see what happens. And about 2 or 3 months later, the story started becoming something. And my main character had dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personalities. And once the character revealed that part of itself, I was like, okay, if I'm going to write this story, I need to do it right. So then I started researching and reaching out to people, and I ended up interviewing 100 people living with the disorder to really get my character right and do it respectfully and authentically. And then at that point, once it was like, okay, now I'm telling someone else's story, like it's very fictional. So I just brought all these pieces together, but it
Hmm.
became more than something that I just had to tell. For me, it was to be a voice for a misrepresented group in society. So yeah, it
Okay.
kind of just told me that's what it's going to do, was be a story, and we're going out
Okay.
there. So I had to listen.
It sounds like a bunch of moving parts. How long about?
From when I started to publish was
Mhm.
probably 3 years, I think.
Okay.
This last year, I really started wrapping it up because I just kept rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and
Gotcha.
changing and changing and changing. And I finally was like, okay, I'm going to do the pre-order on my birthday. We'll do 6 more months, and then hopefully we'll be out, which I do not recommend doing. Have a finished
Oh,
book before
okay.
you put the pre-order out there. But
Mhm.
like I said, it was my first one, so you live and you learn. Yeah, so then I guess from when I decided it was going to be like an actual book, it was probably a good like 8 or 9 months before it was finally out there. And I'm
Gotcha.
still finding things that need to be changed in this all the time. So,
Wow. Wow. It's interesting. Okay, Tara, what do you say?
So, I didn't plan to become an author, honestly. So I came across a self-publishing course
Hmm.
and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to write about. And I figured what I could write about was anxiety. So I published my book in late 2019.
Okay.
And I had a lot of anxiety. So I said I had it my whole life. I can write a book about it. So that's how I decided to put my book and my story into a book. And after I wrote it, I think it took me writing at first to realize how much value it was. At first, I was the author that was like, who am I to write a book?
Right.
So, but after I wrote it, I realized that a lot of people were dealing with the same thing I was dealing with. So I found the value after I wrote the book and when people were
Mm.
telling me that it helped them. So deciding to write the story was because of the course, but after I wrote it, that's when I found the meaning and the impact that it had on other people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Okay, Laura.
Well, for me, that's a harder question. It was not a decision I made so much. I've
Mm-hmm.
known since I was 8 or 10 that I wanted to be an author. I've always wanted to write. And this particular Bluebells Chronicles series grew out of my favorite childhood novel, which was In the Keep of Time, about 4 siblings who go into a Scottish keep and come out in the wrong century.
Wow.
And it was also born of the fact that I am, or I was, an orchestral musician. I played trombone, and my character plays trombone. But I think the real moment that I knew this book had to come to life was I just had this image in my head of this obnoxious, horrible guy sitting at a gambling table, gambling away his trombone. And because of who he is, he's not really that concerned, even though he doesn't have the money to get it back. And he's the headliner for this orchestra. So this
Mm-hmm.
is very bad news, but he doesn't care. He just goes and cons his girlfriend out of her grandmother's heirloom ring to pawn it to get the trombone back before the director finds out what he did.
Right.
And this all just came to me in image. And I was once asked, my writers group was asked to put up plaques at a display, why do you write? And my answer was because there are people in my head that need to get out. And that's really sort of what it was. Here's this
Uh-huh.
obnoxious trombone player in my head, and it wasn't me. It, it
That's
was a
good.
different
That's good. Yeah.
obnoxious trombonist, and he had to get out. He had to be on the pages, and now he is.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Had to get the voices out. I like that. That was a good one.
Yes.
That's really good. So most people have powerful life experiences, and I know, excuse me, when I was writing, it came from life experiences. But not every experience becomes a readable book. What helps authors move from lived experience to a clear, compelling story that readers can actually follow?
Is it my turn?
Danielle?
I'm glad Danielle's first, so I can think
Yes,
about
I
this.
don't know if I have an answer for that. That's a tricky one because I think you have to have lived some sort of experience to write about it, right? So you have to, maybe not personally, but you have to put yourself in that mindset. You have to literally live that person. Like I always joke that like I'm a writer because I couldn't be an actress. Like I think being an actress would be super fun, like getting in that because you're putting yourself in a different perspective and you're doing that. But I could not do that. Like there's no way I would be able, I'd just be laughing the whole time. But as a writer, I can still embody someone different and try new things. And so it really gives you a different way of looking at the world. Like I can tell when I'm in writing mode, like I'm just so much more in tune with what's going around me. And I'm really taking in the experience. Like, oh, like how, like orange juice, it's spilled all over the paper. How does that look? Like, let me just pour a glass of orange juice real fast. And you're just experimenting and seeing what works because you're taking a live moment and translating it to words, which is different. So you're painting a picture with words. So how do you do that? Like you have to get in that moment, feel those things, smell those things, and then portray it in some way that makes it exciting to read on a piece of paper. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, you're giving that was good. That was good. You're giving some points there. Go ahead, Tara. What do you think?
Could you repeat the question?
I can. What helps authors move from lived experience to a clear, compelling story for readers to actually follow?
So from lived experience to what readers could actually follow.
Yes.
So I would say that most authors, when they're writing, they write from their experience, but they write where it's not reader facing. So I feel like although that you're writing from your lived experience, you need to, like Danielle said, make them feel where you are in the book. So
Right.
you want the people to feel your experience. You don't just want to dump your experience without giving them a lesson afterwards, like what they can take from it. So I think what makes it clear and compelling is when they can see themselves in your story. And I think a lot of authors don't do that. They write, oh, here's my story, here's me, but you have
Right.
to think about who's reading it and why they would want to read it and what they will take away
Right.
and put and apply to their own lives. So I think if they think from that perspective, not just about me, but what's in it for the reader, then they'll be able to develop a clear and compelling story.
Good. Yeah. I see a lot of authors like new debut. I don't want to say new. It's called debut authors doing that, and I'm like, yeah, but what happened right here? Like, and they're like, what do you mean? And they start telling me what it is, and I'm going, yeah, but it's not there. So I'm asking you what, So it does have to have a flow of some sort. I get it. I get it. Okay, Laura, what do you think?
I'd say similar to Tara that it needs to be universal. It needs to be relatable to anyone. And
Okay.
so, for instance, my books are about a trombone player, which most people don't do, but they can relate to him because he's obnoxious, like someone they once knew. He's cheating on his girlfriend, like someone they once knew,
Yeah.
or like what
Yeah.
happened to them. He's he's created this situation where he's made this orchestra phenomenally wealthy, and all the musicians as a result are wealthy because he's a great businessman too, but he's also causing them a lot of trouble. And we can all relate to, what am I going to do? I'm in this situation where, as the director is, if I get rid of him, the orchestra fails and we're not rich anymore. But if I keep him, we're going to have a lawsuit. And we can all relate to being in these
Yeah.
situations. My book is about medieval warriors, and yet people are always the same. They run into, for instance, I had fun with this. It's a very, very minor character, but she just heaves and sighs and woe is me and complains all the time. She's very relatable because
Right.
I know someone like that. We all know someone like that.
Yeah.
And so when you put those things in and you put in these dilemmas that even in medieval Scotland, they face the same dilemmas we do, the questions of love, of loyalty, betrayal. Am I going to do the right thing? And so even though none of us have fought a medieval battle, we've all felt the same exact things that they're feeling in
Right.
that story.
Right. All right, audience. I see that you're coming on in. Get your pen and paper. These ladies are going to be giving us some jewels of information. So if you're a writer or considering being a writer, listen in on the rest of this, okay? So don't forget to get your pen and paper, all right? And if you have a question, put it in the chat and we'll ask one of our guests to answer that question. All right, back to the questions. Now I think I will go the other way. We'll start with Laura this time. So, most aspiring authors have full lives, careers, and responsibilities. What does a realistic writing process look like? And what expectations need to be released early?
I can really speak to this. I want to say I have 10 kids, but at the time I was writing, I had 9. One is my
Okay,
stepdaughter. And I was teaching music lessons about 25 hours a week at the time, 6 days a week, I think. I think it was 6 days a week. And so realistically, to me, you need to do 2 things. One, you need to commit to it. You need to decide this matters enough to make the time.
Mhm.
And number two, for me, it was you use every little bit of time you have. And so my laptop and my hard copy always went to music lessons with me. If a
Yes.
student was late, I spent 10 minutes editing. If a student didn't show up, I got a half hour of editing.
Right.
If I was at my son's, three of my sons did wrestling. And so if you understand how wrestling meets work, it's not like other sports. Your team wrestles, and then two other teams wrestle, and then your team wrestles the third team.
Mhm.
And so I might have an hour break while that middle group that didn't include
Right.
my sons was wrestling. So I'd be in a back hall working on my novel. If I'm making dinner, you know, I stir the soup, do some editing, stir whatever, do some editing. And so for me, it was that. And it was also, I stayed up till 1 a.m. I was
Right.
up again at 6 to get the kids off to school. While they were off to school in the morning, I wrote, did my marketing, and then I went to teach lessons, came home, got them dinner, stayed up till 1 a.m. writing. So it's about both those things, using the little bits and pieces of time you have and really making a commitment. I want to do this and I'm going to do this.
Mhm. That's good. All right, Tara. Good stuff, guys.
Laura pretty much covered it all.
Yeah.
It's about the time and the commitment. I think some authors think that you have to sit down, or there's a myth that you have to sit down and get it all out in one weekend, but you don't have to. Some people
Mhm.
do. It depends on the person. Even if you can find 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, or a 30-minute session, or even if you need accountability, that's another thing. Like, I think writing can feel lonely. So if
Mhm.
you could find a group of writers where you all writing together to motivate each other, that's a good way too. Maybe spending a half hour in a writing group. But I think that there's really, it's just about carving out the time, what time of day you feel motivated to write to, if it's the morning, if it's the evening, if it's staying up to 1 a.m. like Laura. So I think it's just carving out the time and the dedication and the time to do it. I know when I wrote my book, I did it with a course. So I knew that I wanted to get the book done. So for me, and it's a shorter book. So for me, it was only about 3 months, but I just knew that I had to get it done. But if you don't
Right.
have that mindset and that determination, then you'll probably be a someday author. But the someday authors, they can commit if they just take the time, the carve out the intervals, like Laura said.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
have to go with that as well. Consistency is
Yeah.
key.
Oh, that's good.
Showing
Mhm.
up every day, regardless if it's 100 words on the paper or 500 words, or you literally just sit there and look at your computer thinking about it. Because your body, as humans, we love routine, right? So if you can kind of go into your office every day at 10, like your creative flow will start to be like, oh, we're in the office. She lit the candle. Like, let me get in the flow. And now you're pumping it out. But also different stories involve different things. Like this story
Mhm.
for me, like this was my first one. I didn't really have deadlines. Like I had to give myself a deadline or I'd still be writing it. Amazon basically ripped it out of my hands for publishing. So that happened. But the story I'm writing right now, the main character, she's in my head too. So she's very obnoxious. And it's like, if I don't write her down every single day, she will literally drive me insane. So this book is going much faster. And she wants to tell her story, which is like, okay, but that's different for everyone. But just showing up. And also it's like you have to just like make the time for it, and make it a non-negotiable really, because the more you show
Mhm.
up, the easier it gets to. Like if I put it down for 2 or 3 weeks, then it takes me like a week or two to get back into it, and then I hate everything I wrote because I was in a different mindset 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This, at least seeing it every day, I would say, until like you're done with the first draft, and then let it sit for like 2 months and then go back to it. Like you need to be looking at it or thinking about it or touching it or talking about it at least at some point every day. And then because as soon as you're done writing it too, like you're not done. Now you have to market it. So you need to schedule that time in too. So if you just make it 1 hour every day of working on this book, like maybe for the first 6 months, I'm working on writing, the
Mhm.
next 6 months, that same hour, I'm doing marketing, doing this, doing that, because it's, if you're not talking about your book, no one's going to buy it. So how do you balance
Right.
that
Right.
time now that it's written and now putting it out there? So it's not just about writing the book. Like everyone says, that's the easy part. It turns out it's like the
Right.
things afterwards to keep the wheels moving. So just dedicate a little bit of time. It could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, but every single day, except for Sundays. Sundays is
Yeah.
self-care Sunday. We don't do
Yeah. You
anything.
need
So
some rest on that day. Yeah. I have a question because I just thought of something. Danielle, did you have a goal for that for your book? Did you say, okay, I'm gonna this is for a certain group of people?
Once the character kind of revealed itself that the main character had dissociative identity disorder, then it became something that when I had to research, so this story became just as much theirs as mine. Like I had people spending hours with me filling out questionnaires and doing this. And I did a Kickstarter for this book. And the end page is actually someone living with it, took the diary, her actual diary and her designs of that, and then kind of tweaked it to the book. So it was like all these different friendships were made. There was a lot of collaboration on parts of this went to it. So it became so much more than just my story I needed to tell. It needed to be a story that other people can relate to. And especially too with this, because it's multiple personalities, like my one character, not everyone has that diagnosis. Like it's a terrible diagnosis, but you can relate to one of those personalities within this one. And so it's just kind of a fun way to explore and experience how many different facets are in just us. Because as a writer, it's like, okay, this is the main character, cut and dry. This is who this is. And now I'm like, okay, this character has 5 different personalities and I have to represent this on the page and still make it coherent as to one person. So it's just like, okay, you have to really kind of put the pieces together and listen too, because like I don't have this diagnosis. So I really had to go off of what other people were telling me and doing the research, and that formed the story in the much bigger picture for me.
Wow. Okay. What about you, Tara?
So the goal for the people, the readers of mine for my book, were people who were dealing with anxiety, but they wanted natural ways to reduce it. So I had myself in mind and people like me in mind.
Okay. All right.
And so I had the anxiety action takers in mind, but I ended up writing for people who were stuck. So after I wrote who were stuck in anxiety but didn't want to do anything about it, those are people I was attracting. So I think when I wrote it, I could have wrote it to attract a different type of, like, the ones I wanted to attract, but I ended up attracting anyone with anxiety. So that was my first book. So it was like I learned from that. It's like I learned what I need to write differently. But yeah, I definitely had anxiety sufferers in mind who wanted to reduce it naturally.
Gotcha. Laura?
My answer is going to be very different. I'd say I wrote the book almost for myself because it was the kind of book I want to read. So the title Bluebells of Scotland is actually a folk song. And as a trombone player, I'm familiar with a theme and variations called Bluebells of Scotland based on it. It's a showcase piece for trombone. It's an amazing piece. Everyone should go listen to it. But the original lyrics of the folk song have to do with streaming banners and noble deeds. And that to me is the kind of adventure I want to step into. So in a way, I wrote it just because it's the book I wanted to read. But as I got closer to making decisions about publication, it also became that at the time, I think because of self-publishing, it's less so now, but at the time, publishing was very much either Christian publishing or secular publishing. And I saw a divide between them where in the Christian publishing, people say, I accept you into my life and boom, life is good and their vices are gone. And it seemed like it's really a magic prayer that just changes everything. Well, I think for most of us, it really isn't. We have to work at developing virtue and getting rid of vice. And it's not that easy a process. And on the other hand, in secular fiction, nobody ever thinks about God, and we make the joke in movies, nobody ever actually uses the bathroom. It's the same sort of thing. Nobody thinks about God. And I say that's not real. Even atheists think about God. Everybody thinks about what is there. Is there or isn't there, and why or why not? And so my book, I feel like really ended up being for people who do acknowledge and experience both these kind of halves of our world. And that's who Sean is. He's very secular. He's very worldly. And he gets thrown back in medieval Scotland where there's a whole different mindset. And he really has to struggle with these things and deal with them. So to me, my book is for anybody who wants that reality of people are both of these halves.
Wow, that's good. Oh, it's all good. That's all good. You guys get good information. Okay, so we're gonna step into the publishing part. Traditional, hybrid, and self-publishing. Each path promises something different, and I know we all probably experienced all three. How should a new author decide which route fits their goals, their resources, or their long-term vision? We'll start with Laura. Start with Laura this time.
Well, I think you start by doing a lot of research. You start by deciding what kind of time you want to put into it, what kind of expense. You start by deciding, do you want to take the chance that you're going to be the one that the publishing house promotes? Now, I sort of do hybrid publishing in that I was with a writers group. Someone else mentioned writers groups. Get into one. They're beyond invaluable. And so at the time, one of our fellow members of the writers group was big into pushing self-publishing. And he was saying the big publishers are no longer doing the marketing that they used to. They're going to expect you to do the marketing, and they're still going to take, 85, 90% of the royalties. You're getting pennies on the dollar, but you're still doing all the work. And he said, why not do the self-publishing? You're going to do just as much work, but you're going to get a lot more reward. So what we did at the time, this was 2009, self-publishing, indie publishing was not accepted the way it is now. I think it's much more accepted now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we created a publishing, basically an in-house publishing group for all the authors in our group. I bought a lot of ISBNs, and I don't mean a whole bunch of ISBNs, a lot, like 1,000. And we set up the website and started putting people's names and books up. And they were all good writers. They're very good writers. So I was very happy to have our publisher's name, Gabriel's Horn Press, as the publisher of these books. They're good books. They're good writers. Mm-hmm. And so now I do publish for other people too, if I like their book. Right. And, that's not my main thing. I would much prefer to write, but that's kind of why I went the route I did. And also, as I said, at the time, I don't think either a religious or a secular publisher would have wanted my book. It didn't fit either world.
Right. Okay. All right. Tara?
So I would say a lot of the authors that I come across, some of them are curious about traditional publishing, and then I educate them, like for traditional. Like Laura said, they don't really market as much, or I've heard that traditional publishers market 6 weeks before you're launching, and 6 weeks after, and then that's it. That's what I've heard. But when authors come to me, a lot of them do want traditional publishing, and I just tell them that it might be a more difficult path because you have to have a large following, because the traditional publishers, they're a business. They want to make sure that they're making the money back that they invest in you. So I educate them and let them know that it may be a longer path, because there's an author that I met, and he's been waiting 5 years to publish his book because he wants to do traditional. Right. But I do encourage self-publishing because that's what I do. So I encourage the indie publishing. And I think that as long as you market your book well, then indie publishing can do well. And I think there's still a stigma around self-publishing. It is more accepted, but I think there's still stigma. Like some people just really want traditional because they think that they're going to market the book. But you do have to still market your book even with indie, with traditional publishing. But I also, there was one more thing I wanted to add, but it went that way. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, we come back. Back to you.
Okay. So question, because there's so many aspects to both of it, right? Like I know a lot of my writer friends, like the goal is to be traditionally published because that was like, oh, I'm good enough that someone's taking a risk on me and I'm doing this. Yeah. But realistically now, I was listening to a podcast the other day and it's like, if you don't have a following of at least 10,000, like agency publishers are just looking over you. So you do have to build this list, and you do have to do this. And then also a lot of publishing houses, you have to have an agent represent you. So they take 15% of whatever you make. So whatever your advance is, they're taking 15% right off the top. And like, you're not in writing books to make money. Let's get that clear. There's very few people out there that are actually making a very good living doing this. A lot of them are on KU, self-published authors, and they just have a good readership, and that's how they're getting it done. But it's not like, and it really depends too. Like my book, this one specifically, I had a lot of interest. I had pitched it to a few agents. People wanted, a couple publishing houses wanted to publish it as well. But because this story is sensitive to me, and Hollywood and media tends to take this diagnosis and really just make it a bad thing. And like, oh, if you have it, you're capable of all these terrible things. Like, oh, your author's a murderer doing this. And they really switch it because that sells. And like in my book, like the main character, yes, has this diagnosis, but one of the authors is the only one that can actually solve the crime. So it's more of a superhero aspect, and I really couldn't have them change that. And I wanted to have it because so many other people invested their real life and their time.
Yeah,
I wanted to have the last say on that. But then because I did do self-publishing, though, you still have to pay for your editor, which is not cheap. It's like at least $1,500 if you're doing it like that. You have to pay for a professional book designer. That's another $500, and you can't just do it yourself. Like there is a whole study behind book covers and why they work and why they don't. Like my Kickstarter has a different cover than this one because I was really into designing it and doing all that, but it wasn't commercial. Like people wouldn't go pick it up off the shelves because it wasn't a commercial cover. So it's nice that I did get to do that as my Kickstarter, but it's like, you have to have someone that knows what it is because everyone does judge a book by its cover. So there's tons of other aspects. So you really have to look at your budget, what you can afford. Like you're probably not going to make anything on like your first 3 books. It's going to be your backlist. That's where the big money comes in. So like you're in it for the long game. Like you're not in it for overnight success by any means. But if you have a really good book and a really good story and you want that traditional route, like you're going to invest time in acquiring agents, like doing this, and it could be 2 or 3 years before your book comes out. And like for me, like this book, I think there's going to be other books coming out that are not like this one, but similar, hitting on those same things. So it's not like this, new idea. Like it's like that time and that course would have run out, and now it'd be just another book on the shelf like that. So I really think you have to think about what you're writing about, what your end goal is, and the time and money commitment, because both of them are going to be completely different.
Okay. So that's good. So we have a question from the audience, but I said I was going to wait, but I think this is a good one. Okay. This writer says that I feel like I'm not ready. So I guess the question is, how do you guide your clients into getting ready? They feel like they're not
never going to be ready. You're never going to be ready. That's it. Like literally, like I said, like I was editing my book until Amazon was like, you have until 2 minutes to put this in. So I really put it in. I waited the 3 days, and as soon as it hit, I went back in and I changed some other things around. So it's like you really have to have someone rip it from your hands because it's never going to be good enough because you're thinking and you're evolving every single day. So what you wrote back then maybe doesn't resonate anymore. So you really just have to have someone be like, you're done. Your editor's really good at doing that as well. It's like, you're done.
Oh, okay. Laura, what do you think about that?
I decided that my book was ready to go out. Now I did, especially on the first book, probably on all of them, I did about at least 12 drafts. I had beta readers. And so when I was doing another read through and I found I'm spending 5 or 10 minutes arguing with myself, should I use he walked down the trail or he walked down the path? I'm like, okay, if you're quibbling about path or trail, this book is ready to go out.
Yeah. Okay. Tara?
I agree with Danielle that you're never going to be ready. Like there's a lot of someday authors, and then someday is not a day. You just have to pick a day and start. So there's no perfect time. It's going to be messy, and don't worry about it, and just start.
All right, you heard that, audience. Just start. You're never going to be ready, so just get started. All right, so we're going to step into writing the book, okay? So writing a book is one thing. Owning the role that comes after it is another. What mindset shift has to happen for an author to move from writer to authority once the book is out?
I mean, I think you just have to be proud of what you've worked on, right? Like the more you talk about it, the more authority you build. The more you write about it on your blog, the more authority you build. You have to believe in yourself or else no one else is going to buy it. So you just have to go out there and be like, this is the best book you'll ever read. And it might feel fake and cheesy, but if you're excited about it, it's more people excited about it and word of mouth. And now people are knowing who you are and hearing your name. And that in itself is that. But you have to be your biggest cheerleader, your biggest hype girl. Do everything that is terrifying and just don't think about it. Like I hate going on social media and doing live things, like no way. But if I do a video, if I look at it once and I'm like, oh, there's a million reasons I can't post this, like 1,000. But if I just do it and send it and don't think about it, then it's like, okay, done, easy. Like that was here, that was. And like being excited, I think makes the ripples go, in my opinion.
Okay. All right, Tara.
Now, I was very shy and quiet. I still am. So when I became an author, I didn't tell anyone. And I knew I needed to tell a lot of people, but it was the fear of being judged for me. So because it's like I just jumped up out of nowhere and decided to become an author. So I agree that you have to keep talking about your wow. You have to keep talking about your book. You have to be vocal, or like Daniel said, you have to be your biggest cheerleader, or no one else is going to care about your book, or no one else is going to know that your book is there. And I made the mistake of only talking about my book here and there because I was afraid that I was going to make people tired of me posting and talking about my book. But you can't care about what people think, because the right people who are going to read your book will read your book and support your book. So
that's good. Laura?
Yeah, I agree that you have to have that confidence. And I think part of the confidence is to make sure that you really are doing it right. I've seen some books, indie published, that I won't name authors. There was one where it was set in the time of Christ. And this man is going along, meets this Jewish woman. They're immediately holding hands. And I'm like, that didn't happen in the time of Christ. Two Jewish people didn't just start holding hands. They would have been stoned or something. And then he takes his money to the bank, and I'm positive banks didn't exist then. And then this girl forgets that her brother is in the middle of being crucified. And it's like when you do things like that, that says to me, you did one draft and were so confident you threw it out there. Well, confidence is good, but you better back it up with action, like getting the beta readers, doing your research, doing 12 or 15 drafts, making sure there are no plot holes, like you forgot your brother was being crucified. Who does that, you know? And you have to really put in the work, and that gives you that confidence. So for instance, on my blog, I call it The History Behind the Story, and I do a lot of articles. At least I used to. Now I'm doing more homesteading because that's what I'm doing. But I did a whole lot of articles detailing exactly the history behind the story of what was happening in medieval Scotland, of what their worldview was like, of how warfare was fought. I've got an entire library about how to kill people. So don't break into my house. I know all sorts of ways to go medieval on you. And I have that confidence because I did the research. I would conservatively say I know enough about medieval history and Robert the Bruce, especially, that I should have a PhD if I'd done it in a college setting. And so that's part of what gives me the confidence that if you ask me about Robert the Bruce, I can tell you. If you ask me about the weather in medieval Scotland in 1314, I can tell you. If you ask me how a 5,000 man army with very poor gear beats 20,000 men from the strongest country in the world, I can tell you exactly how they did it. And that also gives me the enthusiasm. So I will stop there so I don't spend the rest of the hour talking about Robert the Bruce, because I love talking about Robert the Bruce.
Okay. All right. I want to ask Danielle a question. What's the difference between publishing and launching?
Oh man, everything. So there's so many different routes that you can do. So you can literally just have a publish date on Amazon. upload your stuff, press the button, boom, you're published. Or you can do a big launch. Like I did a Kickstarter for this book, like I said. So that was like a little bit more of a hype thing for special editions that you can only get through the Kickstarter. So it's kind of leveling it up. And I know a lot of indie authors are now going towards Kickstarter because their publishing department is getting bigger and better, and people are actually going to the platform to look for books. That being said, people think Kickstarter is just like a donation site, like, cool, I'll give you $20, like, good luck, have write your book. But it's actually a platform, like, you receive products. So it's like when you receive you backed my Kickstarter, you got this book, you got the ebook, you got special editions that you're not going to get anywhere else, deleted scenes. So it makes it more of an experience all around. Like for me, I ended up doing my first draft, like when I went through and edited everything, and I offered that off as that in a 1-hour consultation. And that was one of the first things that was bought. It was like $200. It was like someone I have no idea. And they're like, cool, I want your first manuscript with all your edits and doing this. And then 1 hour Zoom because they're also writing a book. So it's like, you're making a little bit more of a community that way versus where Amazon, like you have no idea who's buying this. And then you can also do live events and launch parties. So it really is going to depend on your energy. Are you introvert? Are you not? Like, are you writing this book just to sell it to whoever wants it? Or do you want it to be a big, do you want to do it? Because there's PR, like there's so much moving parts to the whole thing to make this happen. So it's going to really be your end goal. Like, are you writing this book just for you to hold a book in your hand at the end of the day? Or are you writing this for other people to hold the book as well? Do you want to keep doing it? So I think that's a difference in my opinion.
Tara, question. When you talk to your clients and they want to launch a book, right? They want to get started. What is one of the things that you tell them that they have to do before, the book is before the book is like really published?
Before the book is published, I tell them to start telling everybody about their book, because you can't just write a book and then think that people are going to buy it if nobody knows about it. So you have to start promoting it even during the writing part. So I tell them, please, to start your newsletter, start telling people that you have a book coming, just to build that initial buzz and that excitement. So once your book is published and once you launch it, those will be some of the first people that would be ready and waiting to buy your book, your first raving fans. So that's one of the things that I tell my authors.
Right. Okay.
Can I say one thing off of that too? Like if you're on Instagram, start commenting on people's stories. If you see that there's a story, just make that connection, start doing something. Because like for me, like I kind of started doing that, and it was nice to reach out to old friends I hadn't talked to in forever. But by the time my Kickstarter came, like I fully funded within 8 hours, I think, on that. And then they still don't have my Kickstarter because it's been stuck at customs forever. So it's been a few months now, but all the same people bought the book on Amazon as well because they were so excited about it. And like doing this, like start cultivating your 1,000 true fans, like right now. Like don't just post up on social media, like have those natural conversations. So when it does come up, people are excited for you. So like that was like my biggest thing. The only reason I got bestseller is because people did my Kickstarter. And then when it came out on Amazon, they're like, hell yeah, like we're buying it again. And it was just because of these connections that I've made over the years that I'm cultivating constantly, not just for my own self. Like I genuinely care, but I never would have thought about just like every time I see someone's story, being like, hey, how are you? Like what's going on? And what a snowball effect that would be.
Right. Absolutely. That engagement is important. Laura, what would you advise your client a week after they've launched? Oh, they've published. I'm sorry, not launched, but published.
Well, I think that Danielle and Tara are right that you really have to start before, but a week after you launch, you need to really be pushing hard at that point because you want to activate the algorithms. You want to get your book pushed up. You need a whole bunch of people at once to be buying it so that it gets higher in the rankings. And so one thing that really worked well for me was a blog tour. And I've been told that what works one year doesn't necessarily work another year. And I have had that experience. But that really kicked me into the top 100 in my category, and I stayed there for 8 months. Now, to an extent, it was dumb luck because Diana Gabaldon was huge at the time. And so everybody who loved time travel in Scotland ran to read my books too. But the blog tour really helped a lot. And just as you do for a launch, you do need to just keep talking about it, promoting it, have things come up daily. on your author page and so on.
Okay, good.
Do your background like this, constant advertisement for every Zoom call you're ever on, like stuff like
And you got to keep a list, because I used to get lost in the source and can't remember. So you have to keep a list. I was horrible with that. That's a good one. So in closing with the guests here today, audience, what I want to do is I want them to go around and, you guys give, your last bit of advice, and then tell the audience, what you have coming up and how to get in touch with you, with your specialty and your expertise. Anyone can go first. I'm not picking.
I'll start then. You might have to repeat all of what you just asked me. Okay. What I have coming up is, because I can never just do one thing at a time. My trombone professor hated that about me. Still true. I'm working on my 6 Ivy League mysteries, which is about a mother and her son, a widowed mother and her son, who travel around the country getting involved in mysteries. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're more serious. And the fun part of it is that all the characters in the book are based on town names. So the one I'm working on now is set in Minnesota. So we have Winona St. Charles and her husband, Austin St. Charles. So St. Charles, Winona, and Austin are all towns in Minnesota. Every character in the book is named off the town. So we have a lot of fun with that, and hopefully the people reading them who live in those states will too. I am also working on a series of 3 memoirs that have to do with our change of life from suburb to raising our own food. So 4 years ago, I had never grown a head of lettuce. I spent today with 24 sheep trying to isolate just one with a broken horn. It's quite a change of life. And so I think a lot of people these days are doing the same sorts of things. I've learned how to slaughter chickens and rabbits and cook my own rabbit meat. It's been exciting. And I think it's something people are interested in now as the world is changing around us. So I think the rest of the question was, where can people find me and what do I have for readers today? So you can find me at a number of sites, because I do way too much, but lauravosica.com will direct you to my publishing house, my books, my podcast, my travel blog about all my research trips to Scotland. And I wrote it down here somewhere. So yes, no, I'm going to have to go from memory. I did set up a page where you can download the first book of the series for free, and that is at bluebellsgiveaway.wordpress.com. So that was quite a fun job today, but it's there. You can get the book free.
Awesome. All right. Who's next?
All right, I'll go. So my piece of advice, just start, first of all. Like, just sit down and start writing. You don't even have to have an idea, but put pen to paper every day, whatever comes out. Write what you want to write. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I guarantee you will find a reader that wants what you have to write. Like, do not listen necessarily to what all the advice out there is. Like, if you want to write spicy, suspenseful thrillers like this one, like, do that. It's becoming more of a thing instead of just thrillers. I did get a review. They're like, I didn't like the spice and I didn't like the gore. And I was like, ooh, well, I wanted to write that, so I did. But yeah, just start doing something. That's it. Just a little bit every single day. And you can find me at I am Danielle Blum on all socials. And then on IamDanielleBlumAuthor.com, you can read the first chapter of Fragments of Affection. And then I'm also working on a rom-com series loosely based on my travels around the world the last 12 years. And there is a short story with Olivia Adele, the one that drives me crazy up the wall. I'm working on her book now. But there is a short story on that website as well.
Awesome.
Am I missing anything else? Oh, yeah, and there's tons of free tools for authors on that as well, so go check it out.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You hear that, authors? Free stuff. Free stuff. All right.
So my piece of advice would be similar to Danielle's, to just start. You don't have to be perfect. Just start with 3 things that you've been thinking about writing, and then write them out. And then the one that is calling you the most, that's the one you should be writing on first. So, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn at Tara Martina Hayes. And my website is terrifiedpublishing.com. And on my LinkedIn, you'll be able to find a publish ready checklist to see if you're ready to publish, how far you are in the process, and then that checklist will tell you if you're ready to publish. We're also doing an author cohort starting in February where me and another publisher will be guiding you for 10 weeks with structure and accountability for writing and publishing your book. And at the end of the 10 weeks, you will have a published book. So we're going to, in that, you'll get the cover design, the formatting, you'll get everything. And then if you're not done writing within the 10 weeks, we'll still do touch base with you until you're done writing. We're not going to leave you. So yeah, that's everything that I have. And I have some resources on Terrified Publishing, some checklists on there too.
Okay. Well,
I'll
audience,
throw in
all
my
the
piece of advice.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Get a good writer's critique group. That
Mhm.
has been the very best
Okay.
thing I think I've done.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, with that, audience, we're gonna put all of their information under the video. Okay, under the video, you'll have all of their information, and you can get in touch with them directly. All right. So if you're watching this and thinking, "I've been sitting on a story," this is your sign to stop waiting. These beautiful ladies here have given you some information. This is your time to stop waiting. Publishing doesn't have to be confusing or lonely because you have women like this and men like this. You've heard real perspectives, real pathways, and real strategies tonight. If this episode helped you, like, share, and send it to someone you love who's been talking about writing a book but doesn't know where to start. Thanks for being here on Keeping It Real on Purpose, where clarity replaces confusion and stories turn into impact. We're going to say goodbye for now. I'm your host, Edna White, and my esteemed guests. Bye for now.